killing bush. I've got him at gunpoint.
They're pulling them out.
911. Advise ready for camp.
God!
Welcome to another episode of War Stories. I'm Tom.
I'm Chuck.
Is that the Dixon Marine Corps flannel you have on?
It is.
Those are Dixon flannels are. If they want to sponsor us, we'd be happy to have them sponsor us. But I think the veteran community is already fairly well aware of Dixon flannels.
Yeah. I mean, there's probably still a bunch of people who don't know about them.
Yeah. Anyway,
there's still people who you heard about him. I'm like, yeah, dude, I've known about him for like 4 years.
Yeah. They have almost like limited edition ones. They make a bunch, and then sometimes they go away and never come back. Sometimes they come back by popular demand.
Yeah, they always change them though. Like the Voorhees one, the Crystal Lake or whatever. They do they like to do a Halloween one every year when they do a few, but they're always different print. And then they did create the Voorhees board shorts, which is the same print as the last year's flannel for Jason Voorhees. And this year I think they called it the Crystal Lake, which is a little bit different, but in the same genre.
Anyway, they're not sponsoring us. We're not giving them plugs, but we do like their stuff. So we are going to try something different this week that we've been talking about, and some of you guys have been asking us to do more regularly, which is the discussing videos and things that are on the internet. And this is one that we've gotten asked about. It's actually, I think it's probably 2 or 3 videos separately that we've been asked about. So we thought in this podcast episode, we'd lump them together. Is that
right? I think we just have 2 on here. But we can talk about that third one.
Yeah, because I know we both
I don't know
seen
if
it.
I have it. Yeah, I just don't know if I have it up on here.
Yeah,
but they're both pretty interesting. I guess I could preface it by, "Ooh, that's hot." But I don't honestly. I'm going to say this, and this might be controversial because one was controversial. I think it was a shitty situation, but I'm definitely the first video. I don't think that the officers could have done anything different unless they had prior knowledge of what was in the backpack. And the second one,
well, let's not give our conclusions until we actually like. Why don't you start by explaining each video?
Okay,
because we're gonna post them, right?
Yeah, we'll post them. I'll get up there and post them up today.
And I'd be willing to bet a lot of you have seen some of these on the news, because they're fairly well known.
They've made headlines, or all over Facebook, because that's where you guys get your news, right?
Right.
That's where I get most of my news. I'm just kidding. That's where I get my world news. Anyways, so the first video is a pursuit, and the pursuit is of a motorcycle. Go figure. And so they're chasing this motorcycle, engaged pursuit. I don't know exactly what they're chasing. Do you know exactly what they're chasing? Because the video just starts off, they're in a pursuit.
No, I have not yet been able to figure out who.
It's probably a G ride.
It could be, or it could be reckless. It
could be reckless for sure, because it's a motorcycle and they like to do some crazy stunts. Right. But regardless, simple fact, they're in a pursuit. So they engage in the pursuit. They finally come to a conclusion. The bike kind of wrecks out because the rider jumps off. Officer almost smokes a car that's parked, and a short foot pursuit ensues. As they're chasing, the officer deploys a taser, striking the suspect in the back. This is the first thing that I'm going to say, is that a lot of agencies will have a different policy on this. I know my agency, if someone's running away from you, you're not going to tase them in the back because they can fall forward and break their grill, right? They can break their face, because the neuromuscular incapacitation, NMI, will likely come into play. They'll lock up completely, and then they will lose all control of bracing, and they will smack their face and break their shit. So most agencies, I'm not going to say all, I'm going to say most, because I don't know every agency out there, will have a policy against a fleeing suspect where you tase them in the back. Now, there are exceptions, like a violent escape of a fleeing felon, where you can shoot them and things like that, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about tasing. So He goes, deploys a taser. Suspect goes down, but simultaneously combusts. Now,
Right.
this
Like
isn't
instant, like not even, do not pass
instant.
go, do not collect
No,
$200. It looks
fucking
like the
fireball.
devil just used his
Oh,
telepathy and engulfed the guy in flames, you know?
yeah. To the point where I was like, oh shit. When I saw it, like audible, like it was like a oh shit moment out loud. So
Right.
when you guys watch it, you'll know exactly what we're talking about. Well, apparently his backpack had combustible materials such as gasoline inside of it.
Yeah, I guess he had
And
a
there was
gallon of gas in his backpack.
right, and it's leaking all over the fucking place because anytime you put gas into a gas can, it doesn't stay inside of that gas can. It leaks all over. And plus the fumes, let me tell you this from personal experience of lighting myself on fire.
Right.
The fumes from gasoline will ignite. You do not have to have liquid. So any fumes of gasoline will ignite and instantaneously combust very quickly, very fast, a big flash, and then it'll ignite the liquid.
Well,
propellant inside.
as those of you who are anything, know anything about how the old gas engines work, um, it's the internal combustion engine, and
Right.
you take the fuel and you aerate it through carburation or fuel injection or whatever you're going to do, and that air fuel mixture creates a highly combustible gas
Right.
that then takes a tiny spark and explodes it, moving a piston. Okay, real quick engineering, like automotive lesson there to tell
Right.
you that when you're covered in gasoline fumes, which is essentially gas that has naturally mixed with the air, and then
Right.
somebody applies a taser, hence the spark plug, you
Kaboom.
become a human piston, I guess.
Yeah, human fucking pistons. A good way to put it for all you gearheads out there. But so like there's gonna be a lot of people who are like, oh, I didn't know fumes ignited because my
Yeah.
dumbass at the age of like 14 had no idea
Well,
because I didn't know the inner workings of an engine, right? Or
right.
any type of
Well,
physics.
you grew up watching like movies where somebody's standing in a puddle of gas and they'll flick a
Right.
cigarette into the puddle of gas or flick a match or drop a lighter, and the
Like
lighter will
Hollywood.
ignite the puddle of gasoline.
Right.
When in
Or
reality, if you get that match anywhere near that puddle of gas and it's mixed with the air properly, you're going to have a big cloud of fire.
right. And then you have the people who are like, oh, I'm gonna light my hands on fire. Ooh, look at that. And they put it out. That is alcohol. That is not
Yeah,
gasoline.
no,
It's
no, that's
it's a
alcohol.
quickly evaporating substance.
Yes.
That is not an oily substance
No.
that stays there and soaks into
Yeah,
shit. So this
that's a
guy,
petroleum product is what gasoline
right.
is. That with petroleum being the oil.
So this, yeah, dude, man. So this guy fucking explodes. There's no other way
Yeah,
that he
yeah.
explodes. Like you can't see him and he explodes. And then you see
It
him running
looks like a
around.
horror movie when the bad guy gets doused in
Uh-huh.
flames and like has to walk towards the victim or something like that.
Oh
But
yeah.
he
It
just
looks like
whoosh.
a stuntman.
Yeah,
The way he's running around, he's like, fuck.
yeah,
And you see the cops run away.
right.
Now, if you keep watching, the cops
Mhm.
run away to go get a fire extinguisher. What else are you
Correct.
supposed to do?
Right.
Because there's nothing else they can do. And they run
No.
away because they're like, oh, fuck, fire. I don't want to get burned, right? So they
Right.
go and they grab the fire extinguisher. They come back and they proceed to put him out.
Mhm.
And then they start giving commands. Put your hand behind your back. And if
Right.
people are watching, why are they telling him put your hands behind? He's burned. Yeah, but he's also a wanted suspect. So they have to do that.
And burns don't hurt like you can be completely numb and able to do things.
Right.
There's a guy that fell into a sulfur pit, like a sulfur pool at Yellowstone, and he had like third-degree burns over most of his body. His skin was
Right.
melting off. He died the next day at the hospital. But when he got out of the pool, he didn't feel it.
Right. So
he had to look at people and say, how bad is it?
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll be the first one to tell you, you don't feel it. When
Right.
you get burned, third-degree burn, not second degree or first degree, because those hurt the worst because your nerve endings are still attached. When you get third-degree burns, it goes deep into the tissue and it kills those nerve endings, hence no pain.
Right.
It is very bad because you're going to feel that shit later because when you go to debridement, they're going to have to scrape it all off to where they start getting blood and good nerve endings and good salvageable tissue,
yeah,
if you will. And so they put him out, take him into custody, end of story. Now, if they had prior knowledge of, hey, he's got gasoline, it's always a good rule of thumb is don't fucking tase. If there's ever a doubt in your mind that the suspect might be covered in something combustible, I had a perfect example. I had a suspect who was doused himself in bleach. Now, I'm not a scientist or whatever. And I was like, I know it's a base. I know it's highly acidic, but I don't think it's combustible. But I didn't want a human fireball. So I decided against tasing and just went hands on. And I was able to go hands on. Now, if there's ever a doubt in your mind, don't fucking do it, because you could lead to a massive fireball. You can get yourself burned. You can get, obviously the suspect's going to get burned, and it's very dangerous. Now, I'm not saying don't tase. I'm just saying know your surroundings, know the person, know
well, right, and we
maybe what they're covered in or what they have.
Let's probably get into the tips when we sum up, because we're going to talk about, because this, I would say, in that video, as opposed to the second video we watched,
right,
there was no expectation. Those, okay,
right.
So imagine things you just can't see, right? For you guys that are have been in the military, sniper fire, you just can't see it, right? It's just gonna happen, right? Somebody is standing there talking, and then crack, they go down.
Right.
You know, you fire we've seen those videos where you fire a one rocket or one mortar round or one howitzer or whatever, and you hit an ammo dump, and all of a sudden the secondary explosions, everybody knows. Well, if you blow up secondaries that you didn't know were there, it's not your fault. I mean, it's cool, but it's
right. You didn't know it was there.
You didn't know it was there. So for the military guys, you understand, and for the cops, you understand, if you don't know, right? Graham versus Connor, right? You can't judge it in hindsight. You have to judge it.
It's the objective, reasonable
in the right standard of
the time.
The officer with similar training and experience based on the facts they had at the time. So they had facts at this. Now we can talk about, should you tase somebody that's just running away, right?
Right. And that's why I kind of brought up that policy that most agencies have adopted, because of the fact that you can lock up and you can't brace the fall. Now, if you're just standing there, they're like, well, what's the difference between standing and running? Well, running, you have more inertia going forward. Standing, you have less inertia. You're sedentary.
It's like
and you go falling down. Right. It's still going to fucking hurt. And can you still crack your head? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. However, you can utilize, most agencies have that policy where you utilize it, because if we couldn't utilize it, we wouldn't have a taser. So and it's better than getting shot.
I'll speak to my agency's policy, and I thought it was on the restrictive side of reasonable, right? So if you have that middle ground of reasonable, they leaned just over to the restrictive side of reasonable, as opposed to the more liberal use side of reasonable.
Right.
And ours was, if all you have is fleeing, you can't tase them. If all you have is fleeing.
Right.
However,
I got in trouble for that once.
just like a firearm, right? Can you shoot somebody in the back? Yes, you can. Fleeing felon in defense of the life or yourself, or great bodily injury to somebody else, life of somebody else, right? You can. They present a clear public threat, and they're fleeing, and you're shooting them because of the continuing public threat that will exist should they get away.
Right.
That's shooting somebody in the back. It's kind of, without quoting the law, that's as kind of easy as I can explain it. Same thing with taser. If I tased a guy in the back, and my sergeant said, "Hey, why'd you tase him in the back?" I said, "Well, he was going over a fence into a yard that was an apartment building that I could see had like playground equipment, and it was possibly either daycare or there were kids present or whatever. And he's already wanted for burglary. He's already broken into another house. He's going over their back fence. He could go into their house where there's children. So I didn't want him, now that wasn't like he was running down the sidewalk. He was going over a fence into somebody's yard where he could get into their house, where he could take hostages, all those kinds of things." So I said no. And when he went up the fence, I tased him off the fence, right? But it was in the back.
Right. And even if you didn't have the playground next door, you already have him, you already are able to arrest. So you already have that right there. You have, probable cause to arrest him and whatever. So if you're telling a suspect that you can arrest, and they're like, "Fuck you," and they start to walk away, and you're like, "Fuck you," crack, and you tase him, you're within policy to do it in most agencies. My agency, you can.
Mine you could not.
You can, as soon as they start to walk away, If you're like, he's going to fight, he was already in a fighting stance, you can articulate. It's all about articulation.
If they're challenging you to a fight,
right, and then they decide to walk away, fuck you, dude.
No.
I'm going to tase you.
Well, no, see, ours, if they decide to walk away, you need to try going hands-on again, because they're no longer, they're fleeing the fight rather than engaging.
We were going hands-on so much and so many fights were happening. They're like, you guys should start utilizing the tasers more. Then we started utilizing the tasers more. They're like, you guys should go back hands-on.
Yeah. So that's exactly
this scale.
That's what happened. And I'll tell you this. When we got our tasers, I'm a little biased. I was the arrest and control instructor. So when I saw the tasers, I'm like, all right, we got our Star Trek phaser guns set for stun. It'll be great. But I said, watch what's going to happen is people are going to stop going hands-on, because they can hand out, a tasing and just avoid it. And they're scared of going hands-on anyway, because they halfway remember what they learned in training and they didn't practice it. And so their skills in hands-on are going to go down. The amount of tasings we hand out are going to go up. Right. And then we're going to get into an area where maybe we're tasing people that we could have just grabbed and put in cuffs, and we're handing out injuries.
There was constant back and forth.
That's that scale. Right. So I told the guys, I said, dude, don't start just handing out like taser applications like candy, dude.
Yeah.
You're going to take a good tool, overuse it, and get it restricted. And sure as shit, what happened? All the guys started they were tasing everybody. And I'm like, did you try getting compliance? Did you try, nothing. They were just tasing everybody. So they lost it.
Right. And ours, we had that to the point where every single use of force, whether it was OC spray, foam baton rounds, beanbag, baton, or taser, they all, if you could utilize one, you could utilize any of them, because you had to come to a point where they were trying to mitigate the amount of uses of force, and just made cops get better at articulation. And you're like, well, if I can utilize a taser, I can utilize a pepper spray, I can utilize hands-on, I can utilize baton, I can utilize this. So, and it was to a point that they wanted just to make it, more CYA, where, hey, they could have, batoned him, but they didn't. They decided to use a taser, or they decided
and that's a good standard. Like you went, you could have sticked him. You could have used a baton. You could have given him a little hickory shampoo, but instead you went to the taser, because having some voltage applied is probably better than being struck with a solid object and receiving the blunt force trauma repeatedly.
Right.
But we'll get into
some stick
carotid and how the carotid solves all these problems. But whatever. Anyway, the tasings got handed out like candy. So in these instances, when you tase somebody, this guy's a fleeing suspect. Number one, if it's within policy to tase him while he's fleeing, then more power to them. Right?
Okay.
Okay. So they go to tase him. So then they haven't applied any sort of chemical agent that they know of to him. They haven't sprayed him or anything like that. So how is any reasonable person supposed to know that there's a gallon of fucking gasoline? I literally never, it's all the times I've ridden my motorcycle, I've never ridden around with a gallon of gasoline in a backpack.
No,
never, not once.
Never. That's dangerous,
right?
Not fucking dangerous. So
can you imagine like sliding down the road and your gas starts drenching you, and then a spark from the bike as you're God.
Dangerous as shit. You're even flame on.
The standard there is no reasonable police officer should assume that if you tase that guy, it's going to go up in flames. I think that one's an outlier, right? Those guys are cut. Those guys are clearly. I think they're pretty much covered unless they saw him filling up at a gas station, putting gas into his bike, putting gas into a gas can, placing in his backpack, and putting it on his back, and then that's when they engaged him. He was a suspect in a siphoning gas,
you might want not to do it.
But the second one is very similar. However, this one takes place, if you want to explain it, this one actually takes place at a gas station. Which
so basically
inherently causes. So start there.
What happens is they go to take a suspect into custody. I forget what he's wanted for, but regardless, they go to take him into custody. And I want to say, because the clip I saw was just the scuffle and then the tasing and then kaboom. I think that he was filling up his bike before. I think it was a stolen bike. I'm not.
So it
Don't
was in
quote me on it,
Florida. It was in Florida.
and this sheriff is already under hot water.
I think he's getting charged. So we'll
he
get
was
there.
under hot water beforehand, but
yeah.
So they get into a scuffle and they're in a gas station at a pump, and then an officer deploys a taser, and then what do you know? Poof.
Yeah. So deputy, well, it doesn't matter. He took a taser, discarded at the scene, and used it on the suspect who had spilled gas on him after another officer tackled him by the pump and knocked his dirt bike over.
Yep. So he was getting gas.
Yeah. So Florida.
So what do I remember?
Let's see. He was filling up his dirt bike. Was it G-Ride? The suspect was driving recklessly on his dirt bike with a group of other motorists. Okay. And the Osceola County Sheriff's Office, multiple citizens called in to report individuals who were pointing guns at people. Okay. But that was a day earlier. So you have a bunch of motorcyclists pointing guns at people the day before. All right. So I can understand the now you have another group of motorcyclists driving recklessly. That ups the tension, but we have to resist the urge to connect the incidents. It's just because they're similar motorcycle groups doesn't mean these are the guys that were pointing guns at people. Number one. Number two,
be vigilant,
and we don't even know, like, it was multiple individuals, multiple citizens called in to report they were pointing guns at people, but how reliable is it? So let's start there. They attempted a traffic stop. He ignored the patrol car. Pursuit goes. So they did not pursue him, right? So they flip their lights on to pursue him. He beats feet, so they did not pursue him. Okay,
right. A lot of agencies have policies against pursuing motorcycles because of how dangerous it gets.
So multiple officers tried to apprehend him. So from what I can tell, they decided not to pursue him, but then he had to gas up, and they see him and are able to say that's him. Probably matching the description. They're out looking for him. They find him. He thinks he's gotten away. Now the cops are like, nope, I found him. And they converge on him. One officer tackles him while he's gassing up his bike. So it says the motorist was taken down from behind and gassed from his bike. He had finished filling up, but did not put the gas cap back on all the way. So he finished filling up. Gas can is open. Gas tank is open.
Bad.
Gas cap is not on the gas tank of the bike. Officer takes him down. So let's start there. Well, it's just
right.
I mean, do you have? I wouldn't necessarily tackle the guy. I would probably, especially knowing what we know about the gun thing, I would probably have gunned him. I would probably have pointed my gun at him to put your hands up.
And he's saying when he says gun him, he doesn't mean shoot him. He just means draw down on him because he is a suspect that is potentially armed with a firearm. So you meet force with force and you go to take him into custody. If he takes off again, you're in another pursuit, or you have to let him go if you don't see a firearm.
Yeah, gunning somebody is different than gunning them down.
Right.
It just means to point your firearm at them.
So there's many of us who have been in, and myself included, have been in use of forces inside of gas stations or at the pumps. So I always like to go hands-on. I don't really like the taser. I've gone more hands-on than anything. I have deployed the taser a bunch of times. However, I prefer going hands-on because I'm more confident in my skills, and I've seen the taser not work on people. And I know that if I can go hands-on, most often than not, I'm going to gain compliance and be able to take that suspect into custody pretty fucking quick. Now, there are outliers.
Yeah, I like going hands-on.
I do too.
I like think it's just like I'm not even gonna lie. I enjoy the fight. I would enjoy fighting with somebody. I know a lot of guys don't like it. They're afraid of getting hurt or whatever. You
get hurt.
The ass you're gonna But I would rather go hands on than use, like, if somebody says, "Well, would you rather go hands on or spray somebody with pepper spray and have them give up?"
Hands on.
Go hands on. Would you rather go hands on or taser somebody? Hands on. Would you rather go hands-on or stick somebody? Hands-on, right? I would just rather go hands-on, get in the fight, twist them up, and part of that's because I'm an instructor and I know what I'm doing. So guys that are out there,
confident in your abilities.
If you're not confident in your abilities the way I am, go get confident in your abilities. Like go to
Exactly.
some jujitsu classes, talk to your arrest and control, put in to be the arrest and control instructor, go to the training, right? These are all
Right.
things that are available to you to get better at
Yeah.
hands-on.
And you can even write if your agency's small, and a lot of guys are like, "Oh, I work at a small agency. We don't really have that." Right. But you can write a proposal in a grant form and ask your agency to send you to a national law enforcement arrest and control school
So you
where
can bring the training back to your department.
right. So you can bring
They
it
have
back.
grants for
And
that.
there's so many grants out there. You just have to learn how to do it. And it's very
Mhm.
easy. It's a hip pocket class you could probably take, and
Yep.
bam, you do it.
2
And
weeks
there
of
should be
awesome
someone at your
training.
department who knows how to do it,
Yeah.
because at a certain level, you have to know how to write a grant, because you have to ask for aid, and that's the only way to do it.
Yeah.
But
And I've seen there's a local agency. So there's a local company that I have met and spoken to, and I'll leave their name out of it, but they are a private company that does weaponless defense hands-on training for agencies, security, all this. And I will say this, that training is great. They do a great job of training, but neither one of them are cops, right?
Sheepdog Response does it.
Yeah.
Or is that who you're talking about?
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm just saying,
Sheepdog Response does it.
I'm saying there's value to having somebody like you guys all go to this training by these private companies and all that stuff and receive all the ninja training and all of a sudden become, have to register your hands as lethal weapons. Fine. But without somebody on your department who knows your policy, knows the skills and training of the people that you guys work with on a regular basis, and experiences the same calls for service and deals with the same demographic that you do, that person inherently will understand the needs of the department more from the arrest and control and writing policy aspect than a stranger who has a one size fits all approach to every agency. So I would say, yes, go to those trainings with those experts, but then go to become an instructor and bring that back to your agency and kind of combine the two.
And here's,
that's just me.
Here's the thing I'm going to say on policy regarding tasers, which is going to be adopted by every agency in the United States, is that if there is a combustible material on the suspect, you do not tase, such as pepper spray, because we all know that it can spontaneously ignite due to
there's oil-based pepper sprays, there's alcohol-based pepper sprays.
So it's always a rule of thumb, you do not fucking pepper spray someone and douse them and then tase them.
Right.
If that doesn't work, you're going fucking hands-on, because it's just going to be safer. Because if you're tangling up with someone and your partner tases them, guess who's going up with him? You are.
Yeah.
So it's always a good rule of thumb not to do it. And most agencies, actually all agencies, will have that policy against it. Now, a good rule of thumb, in a gas station, there are fumes all over the ground because people spill fuel all the time. There's diesel fuel, there's petrol, there's everything. There's 85, 87, 91.
Expect that shit.
Whatever.
So getting back to the video then, you're right to get us back on track. This guy tackles him from behind, and then I'm assuming, because they don't specify, that because the gas cap's not on, that he gets doused with fuel. And then at some point, another cop picks up a discarded taser, which is interesting. I wonder if it just fell out of somebody's belt, right? Because they were wrestling. And maybe it fell out of his belt and the guy sees it and goes, "Ooh, taser. Cool. I'll use that."
I would surmise that the first officer went to go and take it out and he's like, fuck,
you think so?
Gas, and puts it back in and doesn't snap it, and then gets into an altercation and it pops out.
I mean, that's as good of an explanation for it as anything, because it sounds like without any other evidence, that sounds like something we would do.
Right, because I've pulled a taser out on someone and been like, it's going back in, and I didn't snap it.
Right, because you hope for the tension just to hold it in place, because you don't have time. You have to transition to another weapon system, whatever it's going to be.
Right. Quick.
Well, here's where, and we don't like to Monday morning quarterback anybody, but in this instance, this guy's being charged with a crime, and I'm going to tell you that I don't necessarily. I mean, it sucks anytime any cop does something on the street and it makes a mistake, especially when that results in being charged. But that's why we have laws, right? And would I have made the mistake of tasing somebody at a gas station? I don't know. I've never been
Could have.
I've never been in that situation where the guy. Now I know my penchant for hands on, and more than likely I would have crawled on the guy's back and thrown my arm around his neck and tried to, you know, arch my back and stretch him out to 2 inches taller
with an upper body control hold, not a
right
carotid restraint hold.
Well, no, in my
Upper
day
body
it was still acceptable.
I always love it reading them. You're like, upper body control hold, bro. Hey, it slipped. You're like, I got it.
Okay,
Got it.
Well, okay. So real quick, did I ever tell you I got a call from, because I was well versed in use of force, but also the report writing and articulation of it. They sent me to a class. And the guy calls me, and I won't say who, but he calls me and he goes, "Hey, so what's the verbiage I should use for this technique?" And I'm all, "What'd you do?" And he goes, "Well, the guy's coming around the corner. He's being foot pursued, and I knew he was coming around the corner, so I was able to catch him. So I stick my arm out, and I kind of, kind of like a clothesline." and and I went, "Well, so I didn't teach you the clothesline, but I did teach you an arm shoulder lock takedown, which requires you to stretch your arm across their body." And he's like, that's probably what I was trying to do. I'm all, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, that's what I was trying to do."
Yeah.
I couldn't remember what it was called. I'm all, "That's what I thought."
Right. And it's always a good rule of thumb when you're writing your reports to help with your articulation to open up your memorandum and your policy on joint manipulations, takedowns, things like that, because you're not going to remember everything under the sun. And it's always a good refresher to have when you're writing these reports. You're like,
the terminology,
I know what I did
the verbiage,
is in policy,
right?
But fuck, I want to know what it's called, because I can't just say I fucking clotheslined him. I punched him in the face. I utilized a palm strike, and I struck him in the face because he was trying to fight me. There's things that you can utilize that sound better on paper when you're writing them, because they are part of your policy and adopted by your training and tactics department in your agency. So it's always a good rule of thumb to do it. And it's always a good rule of thumb, if you're fucking tangling up in a gas station, don't deploy your taser.
Right.
Just,
so I think
that's because you never know.
That's the ultimate thing we're saying. It's this, no shit, right? But that's that. So at the point at which I think the mistake is made is when this officer deploys a taser at a gas station on a man that he reasonably should have known. I mean, they say it says no smoking right by the gas pump, right? The chances of a cigarette blowing up the pump are less than the chances of an electric spark. Electric spark is exactly what an internal combustion. That's why they tell you discharge all does anybody actually read the fucking stickers at the gas pump? I do. It says discharge static electricity. Don't touch touch a car door, then touch the pump. Like, never fill the gas can anywhere but on the ground. Like, all these things. They're telling you this because there is a genuine chance that either a cigarette or static discharge can ignite the fumes around you as you pump fuel. They know this.
Right.
This officer has gassed up not only his police car, but his personal vehicle countless times. And he knows a taser. The spark is one of the coolest things a taser does. You test it before your shift. You see that.
And I can't tell you how many times gassing up at the pumps and you look over, and I've been victim of it myself. I've fallen short, and you're doing your pre-taser check before at your start of watch, and you're sitting there and you're at the pumps, and you back up like 5 feet, and you're like, I'm gonna do my taser, and you're like, cool, it works.
Oh,
how dangerous is that? It's so fucking
our
dangerous.
gas station
honestly,
wasn't
most of us have done it.
Our gas wasn't we had to go to a different gas pump than at our station.
Was at our station.
So we were
I can't tell you how many times officers just like, fuck it. It's complacency.
It is.
And I've been victim. I've fallen victim of it for sure. However, if I smell gas, I'm not tasing someone. I fucking had, the dude was covered in the guy I had, he was covered in bleach, and I was like, no,
and this is about
not even gonna deal with it.
Right. And that goes back to keeping your wits about you. Right. Like, that's your responsibility. Like, I don't care. Okay, he made a mistake. Right. He did make a mistake. But I tell my son all the time, if you drop a plate in the kitchen by accident and you say you're sorry, it doesn't fix the plate. The plate's still broken. This guy still got set on fire. And let's face it, I don't think in the jurisprudence system that an appropriate level of punishment for reckless driving has ever been codified as burned alive, right? Like
No.
that is not a prescribed punishment. So there comes a point at which discretion you have to go, fuck it, dude. I'm not going to set this guy on fire over reckless driving.
Right. It's risk versus reward, and the risk is too high based on the reward. Might as well just go hands on. And if you tweak your shoulder or you tweak your lower back or whatever, fuck it. I mean,
Take the
at
time
least
off.
you're not burned alive, because there's a good chance if you're tangling with someone up at a gas station and you smell gas and someone deploys a taser, you're going up with that suspect as well. And I guarantee you some of those cops got burned pretty good.
Oh yeah.
But I don't think any of those coppers should be brought up on charges, like because there was no malicious intent. They were trying to apprehend a suspect. However,
The one who
you should
discharged the taser
probably
is
get
being
training.
the one
That
who
sucks.
discharged the taser is being charged with negligence.
Oh,
And
they must have had a really strict policy. I mean, I think people fuck up. I think cops are all humans. I mean, I know we are. So I always feel bad, and I'm always gonna try to take the side of the cop unless it's fucking egregious and you're just like, what the hell?
two
What are you
people will be
doing?
charged. Surveillance video
That feels so
shows the
bad. I
flames
mean,
then engulfed the
yeah.
suspect. According to sheriff's office, deputies were attempting to arrest. The says officials say Pareto and the deputy that deployed. Oh, okay, so the suspect and the the deputy are both being charged. Yeah, so it's two people. That's the two people. It's not two deputies. But he had the fire marshal's office investigate. He did not send it to the Department of Law Enforcement because a firearm was not used. Instead, a taser or less lethal force was used. He did not turn the investigation over to Department of Law Enforcement because he has full faith in the integrity of his department. They determined that they referred it for charges, and I guess the reason he's being charged is because it sounds like negligence is the charge.
Right.
I'm looking
Probably
for
didn't articulate well enough.
yeah. Culpable negligence. So the quote from the department spokesperson, this guy named Lopez, said the deputy was aware that there was gas in the immediate area. He says, kill the pump. There's gas.
Oh, so you hear him. He shouldn't have fucking deployed.
Even
if you kill the pump,
he said he then grabbed a discarded taser and told the suspect, "You're about to get tased again, dude." And then his actions were reckless, and the disregard for life rises to the level of culpable negligence. So there's one or two sets of facts in there that change. He fucked up. If he ran up in a panic and he could articulate, I didn't know that this guy. But when he says kill the pump, there's gas. No, now you know there's gasoline, and you tased anyway. Bro.
It doesn't kill the gasoline. It kills the pump from actively spewing out gasoline, but it doesn't kill the gasoline that's already on the fucking ground or all over the place. You know what I mean? And as we know, fumes ignite.
So guys,
ignite quick.
Like, use your head. Keep your cool, right? Like,
yeah,
that's fucked. I feel bad for the dude, but at the same time, I can't make excuses and I don't know what it was, but it could have been hubris. It could have been complacency. It could have been, this guy could be the most arrogant, cocky motherfucker on his department who hands out tasings like it's nothing and doesn't give a shit. And he's like, fuck them. If they fry, they fry. Or he could be the most timid guy on the department who's afraid to fight and use his taser. And he could be anywhere in between. I have no idea. So I'm trying to articulate to you guys listening. I'm not making judgments on this guy as a person. I'm just saying that if you get into this job, you're held to a standard. And part of that standard involves, and this is why stress academies are so important. Part of that job involves being able to use your fucking brain and keep your cool while the situation is going to shit.
Right. And here's a good rule of thumb. And there's two things you should probably always follow when you are getting into it. You're going to deploy your taser. There's two big fucking no-nos. One, and it was case law that was brought down from New York, tasing from an elevated platform. If the suspect is on an elevated platform in New York, they was on like one of those elevated things. It's like 3 feet high,
Yeah.
It was something on the curb, and the suspect was standing. He's like, "Fuck you!" And boom,
Wasn't he
tased,
like on a
fell down,
train?
cracked his skull.
There
There was a
train
bunch.
platform?
There was that one too.
Uh-huh.
I mean, there's a fucking bunch.
Yeah,
Like
there's a bunch.
it wasn't just one that happened.
Right.
There was also one on top of a roof,
Right.
and the officers were like, "Well, we weren't elevated. I was up there with him." Like, no. Like, it doesn't matter if you're standing on there with him.
Right.
It's still elevated because it's a roof.
Right. If
You know what
there's
I mean?
a distance for the suspect or the tased person to
Hit the
fall,
ground.
right? If they're
Right.
not standing on the ground or within a foot of standing on the ground, it's a bad idea.
Like a curb. You're okay on a curb. Because it's
Yeah.
flat ground. And if
Right,
it falls
sure.
onto the street off of
But
that,
if they're standing on the
medium's
bed of a
curb,
pickup truck, I'm not going to do it.
you can't. No, it's case law. You cannot do it. You will get fucked, and you will probably get charged. Number two, any type of flammable substance on or around a suspect, you do not tase.
Or unknown.
It's just
if you know it's water, soda, whatever, fine. But if you don't know what it is,
right.
Hell, if it was in a bar and the guy comes out covered, I don't know if it's 151.
Right. Oh, there's a third one too. My bad. There's a third one. Any body of water. If you were in a backyard and you tase someone right next to a pool and they go and they fall into the water and then they fucking drown, that's on you because there are three. I'm sorry, it's not two, it's three. I misspoke. It's three. So elevated platform, flammable substance, body of water.
Yep.
You do not tase because one, electrocution in water, bad. You don't take baths with the toaster, you know what I mean? So there's those major three things that every agency will have adopted in the United States. I can only speak for the United States because we are in the United States. Anywhere else, like Australia or the UK, I can't speak for that, which I would assume they probably have the same similar law, but I can't speak to it. So those are the main three things you should always abide by when you're getting to deploy a taser. Now you'd be like, well, Chuck, what about a suspect that, a fleeing suspect or whatever? Okay, that's cool. What if I could have used my gun? Okay, that's fine. You better be able to fucking articulate the reason why you tased someone and you deviated from your policy of that particular weapon system. If you deviate from tactics or policy, you better be able to articulate it. Like the number of tasing, say you tase someone a shit ton of times and you noticed that your taser had broken and it wasn't working, and based upon the fight, a little bit of tunnel vision, but you're like, it's not working, I don't know why it's not working, and you finally realize it's not working, and you're like, hey, you switch to a new one and it works, and then you're done and you only tase a couple times, you better be able to articulate the reasoning why there was so many uses of, or so many applications of that taser.
Yeah. Now, well, I was going to bring up the one from earlier in 2022, the guy in New York, he actually died, right?
Yeah.
And so this is the third one. And this is the one we both saw. The New York AG's office investigated an incident and the man died. He covered himself in hand sanitizer, right? So right. So we're back into that, like, if they cover themselves into, it's not gasoline. But
that was at the custody.
Yes, he was in custody.
Yeah,
he died, and he goes up like, yeah. So he was interacting with the police officers in the lobby of the Catskill Police Department. Okay, he's agitated. He takes off his sweater, like you guys know, the sweating, the pacing, looks like a tiger in a cage, ready to pounce, kind of a thing. We all have dealt with PCP. That, right? But he's in the lobby, right? And then it's 2022, folks. There's hand sanitizer sitting right there. He takes the bottle and he starts squirting it on his head and chest. So now he's in the lobby. I can't imagine he's not being watched, right, as he's doing this. So now there needs to be communication. Hey, he just doused himself with hand sanitizer, right?
Right. Constant communication.
Right. And then one of the officers points a taser at him and zaps him. Right now, here's the thing. It says right after he douses himself with hand sanitizer. I have not counted the seconds, right? Is it possible that the officer was deploying the taser as the guy started dousing him to the point where, yeah, maybe he was done dousing himself, but the officer's commitment had already been made to tasing him and there was no time in that reactionary gap for him to alter his course of action?
Or maybe there was no word like, hey, he doused himself and he had
Right.
no fucking
And
idea.
maybe he just comes
you
out
know?
the door with a taser, like
And just
like
pop.
he's already committed to the
Right.
whatever. I don't know. Okay, I'm not. That's
Exactly.
why
A
the
lot of unknowns.
attorney general's office is investigating it. But the issue is he falls to the floor and the officer exit the lobby and leave him there for 14 seconds. Then they come back into the room. They brought in a stretch and then 15 minutes to get him a stretcher. So he spent like a month and a half in ICU and then he dies.
Right. And
these are some go ahead. These are some interesting circumstances because there's a lot of what ifs.
Right. And anytime, let me just explain something about fire. Anytime someone is set on fire, if they inhale fire, it will actually burn the esophagus and it can lead to basically you choke on your own fucking suffocation. You choke on your own phlegm and mucus because the inside of your throat is burned and it's swelling and it's closing. And
you basically sear your lungs shut.
Right. And it's just too much. And if it gets inside of the lungs, you're toast. There's so many things that can happen when someone is caught on fire. And you're like, well, it took him a while to die. Yeah, it's because his lungs were probably torched, but they weren't 100% torched. And just the buildup of mucus that was trying to cover itself, because you get a scab and stuff, it's a buildup of mucus and things like that creates a hard shell. Well, inside of your body is trying to protect itself and it starts secreting like mucus and shit. And you end up choking on that, and he just ends up choking, basically suffocating himself to death on his own fluids. And that is something really bad, especially when anything like say you drink bleach, which this actually happened. Say you drink bleach, and what that's going to do to your esophagus, it's basically going to start liquefying the soft tissue. If you ever spill bleach on your hand and you feel it starts to get like pretty slimy, that's because it's a base. It's very acidic. It's starting to break down skin tissue.
It's very alkaline.
You must wash it immediately. Well, if it's inside your fucking throat, they can only rinse it so much. It's the same kind of concept when it comes to fire. Once that fire gets in there and torches it, now it's starting to get mucusy, it's starting to close, it's starting to swell, yada yada. So it's
right. For those of you that didn't understand basic chemistry, there's a pH scale. There's acid and base, right? The base is alkali, right? So it's the alkali is what you can put on bodies to make them decompose faster, right? Or acid. Liquefy. That's the whole point, is when you go on either end of the spectrum, right? If it's not pH balanced, that God bless Secret or whatever the deodorant is that's pH balanced. If it's too alkali or if it's too acidic, it's going to start to break down tissue, period. End of story. Right. That's just what's going to happen. And that's why you don't want anything to be too one way or the other. Vinegar is so base, it neutralizes acids, but vinegar is not so base that just like, yeah, it'll eat through tarnish and stuff like that. That's why you don't put vinegar in a metal can. You have to put it in a glass jar. Right. But you can spill it on your hand and be okay. There are other things that are so, Red Devil Lye, caustic soda, these kinds of things. Right. You get it on your hand. You guys, for those of you that saw Fight Club, this was a scene where he kisses the back of his hand and then dumps the powder on it. That's alkali, and he gives him a scar because it bubbles up and eats his flesh. Right. So this is the stuff you got to consider that people are dousing themselves in. And what it's doing to you, what it's doing to them, it can do to you.
Right. And to deploy Taser, you don't have to be a scientist or anything like that. You just got to follow some pretty simple rules. And it's those 3 I told you about. And if you ever have like a doubt and you're like, fuck, I don't know, just don't do it. Go hands on. And if you're like, I don't have the skills to go hands on, well, rethink what you're doing, okay, as a career. And if you really like your career, you should go and invest in it and invest in yourself and get those skills, because it could be your life. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, there's just those 3 incidents that we decided we would figure we'd break down. The first one that we spoke about, really, unless you have X-ray vision or you knew about the prior gasoline, that's a shitty situation. And I think those coppers reacted really well to it. They're like, oh shit, fire, let me go get the fire extinguisher. And thank God they had a fire extinguisher. And this is why, you guys, at the beginning of shift, check your fire extinguisher, make sure it's good. Don't press it and
Check all your shit. Oh my God.
Make sure it's good. Make sure it's been one, a technician's come out, and two, make sure that the pressure is right, because I can't tell you how many times that I've had a boot, hey, check the shit. He doesn't check it, and you go out and you have to use it. And you're like, there's nothing fucking in it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It goes poof, and there's nothing there.
Yeah.
So that's it, that they reacted really well. And then they took him into custody, good commands. The second one,
I understand why he's being charged. I'm not saying that I'm happy about it. I'm just saying that I understand.
There were some commands, right? And there were some commands being given. You shouldn't deploy after those commands were given, and you already kind of
you've cooked your own goose by committing to that
on camera. So you
cooked kind of his goose.
Right, you're kind of screwed on that. And then the third one, I mean, it's just a shitty situation, still under investigation. We don't have all the facts,
right?
So it could go either way. If you had prior knowledge, like I said, anytime you have prior knowledge, you always err on the side of caution or don't do it.
Here's the deal: if you came in there and he's doused in anything, like he wasn't doused in something before, right? Well, yeah, you should smell it. But he came in there, he had a shirt on, and he was dry. Now you're in there, he's shirtless and he's slimy. And you should be able to look. My first thing is I'm going to look around the room and go, the fuck is he covered in?
Right.
It
could be a flammable substance.
Who knows what it is, right? But again, we don't know. The officer burst through the door and deployed taser. I mean, it doesn't sound like it. There's a lot of what ifs. So we won't even. Let's just. I'd be curious to see what, if anything, comes out of that from the Attorney General's office, especially because the guy died.
Yeah, I mean, you see him on camera too, just dumping that shit all over him. And then during COVID, how many of these places, and still do, making hand sanitizer were, distilleries? Because they're like, oh, well, we can basically take the same product that we were making and make it into alcohol. Now we can just make it into a jelly, more liquidy hand sanitizer. And it's just super strong, right? Because you're using alcohol in a highly concentrated amount. So how many times have we during COVID put the hand sanitizer that got delivered to our stations on our hands? And you're like, ooh, that's tequila.
Dude, hand sanitizer is like 120 or 130 proof.
Yeah, that's why alcoholics drink it.
Yeah,
when they're in lockup. It's so just be careful.
Table salt and hand sanitizer. They use the table salt to extract the gel from the hand sanitizer, and then they can drink straight alcohol out of it.
Fuck, dude, it's alcoholics, man.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, Chuck, we don't have a guest, so I guess the dedication is up to us, is it not?
Yeah, I have one.
Oh, well, that's perfect.
I pulled it up. Okay. Investigator Maisha Stewart was shot and killed near the intersection of Reed Road and Rebecca Street during a vehicle pursuit at about 7:30 p.m. Greenville officers and deputies with the Washington County Sheriff's Office were pursuing a subject who had fled after shooting his girlfriend. The subject was taken into custody. Following the pursuit, Investigator Stewart is survived by her 3-year-old son and parents. He was 30 years old.
Fuck. Too young.
Way too young.
And it doesn't. So I kept track of law enforcement line of duty deaths and ambushes and stuff like that when I was a cop. And I've been keeping track since doing this podcast after retiring. And I'm going to tell you right now, anecdotally, it seems like felonious assaults, ambushes, brazen attacks on police officers are up since like 2015, 2014.
Real quick, let's just go see
going way up.
What the how many there are, if it's going to tell me.
Yeah, you can. The FBI, database keeps track of all those statistics. That's how we know. That's how we know, folks, that the narrative about police officers shooting Black people more than any other race is false. In fact, white people, like unarmed white people, are, I think, the number one group of, by percentage, people getting shot by the police, according to the FBI data that they keep on officer-involved shootings.
That's true. So generally, there's about 140 on average officers die per year. And as Tom and I have been doing this podcast, and before we had started noticing it going up, we're like, okay, it's not really 140 anymore. Right now, year to date, as of today,
and this is beginning of November 2022, so we're in the 11th month. So 10 months passed.
They break it down by gender. on ODMP, Officer Down Memorial page. This is all the officers down in the line of duty. So it's not just gunfire. It's not just accidents. Right. It's everything: gunfire, accidents, other accidents, automobile accidents, shit like that.
Which used to be the number one.
Right. So, right. And now, male, 175 deaths of officers year to date. Female, 20. That's what, 195 if I did my math right. And then there's a lot of canines. And then let's just see how many were COVID got a lot. But gunfire. So COVID, just to put it in perspective, 64 officers, COVID. And as we just said, automobile accidents used to be the number one. 27, right?
Okay.
Gunfire, 53 by gunfire. And that's not inadvertent gunfire. That's fucking gunfire.
Direct, yeah. Wow.
And then heart attack, 9, and then there's other ones like vehicular assault, 11. And those are the highest.
See,
ones,
you got to include, I would include vehicular assault with the gunfire because it's still anything that's not accidental or not like illness is.
So then you would be at 64.
Yeah.
And then the other one is struck by a vehicle too. So you can lump that in. So it used to be where automobile crashes, where we're just strictly like in pursuit, you're falling, you get an automobile crash, boom, you die.
Respond to a call.
Those were the most dangerous. And now it's kind of taken the turn where COVID is technically the number one if you just want to lump in just gunfire.
Well,
but
we
if you
have
lump
to
in
look
violent
at how many
attacks on
people
officers,
died of other shit and it got lumped in with COVID.
Right.
We're still,
but if you,
anything that's a COVID death right now is still questionable. Still a little sus.
But if you just look at assaults like on officers, they are above the COVID deaths, right? They're even to above. And that is crazy.
Staggering.
That is wild. I mean, I don't think I've ever really seen it. And it's going up. It's getting very dangerous out there. So all the officers that are doing this job, thank you very much. Thank you for your hard service. Thank you for your dedication, and thank you for doing the Lord's work every fucking day and strapping on that vest and, writing that check, that blank check with your name on it, because as we know, this is a very dangerous job and it's only getting more dangerous as we go on.
Yep.
So
rest easy. We got it from here.
Yeah. So thank you all for doing the job. And then I have some.
Yes.
Shit.
Well, so for locker room, I can't wait to tell you guys. I made the trip out to Seattle. Oh boy, can't wait to talk about that with you and Matt and Marco.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I saw
my
that.
First trip to a major city since leaving California, and oh boy, yeah. So that'll be fun to talk about. How I forgot COVID was still a thing.
Oh, they were wearing all masks and shit up there?
I'll get into it. But also the city, what a piece of shit that city is. And it's so sad because it's such a beautiful, I mean, it's literally a beautiful, the houses, the geography, the city itself is gorgeous, but it's just a shame. So we'll talk about that in the locker room. But I want to talk about those kick-ass shirts we dropped.
Yeah. So those shirts that we dropped was a as it's kind of fitting for this episode because it's Ride the Lightning, and it's
not like we planned it or anything.
Oh shit. But no, it's been something that Tom and I had been working on for quite some time, and we started way back with getting
like this was probably like last year, like
almost a full year from
almost into last year.
We were starting to work on it, and
we were going back and forth on designs, and I think I doodled it at my desk and I sent it to you. I'm like, what do you think?
It was Antifa.
This? Yeah.
It was the Antifa.
Yeah, it was the Antifa thing.
Because that wasn't when Antifa was like the riots and stuff when we started talking about it.
Yep.
And then it morphed into this, hey, well, why don't we do tasing? Hey, oh, that'd be great. And next thing you know, it came to fruition, and now we have the shirt and 2 stickers. Now, those stickers are not going to be available for purchase. They are only available when you get the shirt. When you order the shirt, you will get 2 stickers. You will get a Ride the Lightning sticker and a Ride the Lightning FAFO sticker of the full logo on the back. So you get the logo that's on the front of the shirt and the logo that's on the back, and you get 2 of them. So one of each in your order.
One for your Yeti and one for your laptop.
Right. Yeah. And they're good stickers, the die cut, they're pretty awesome. And so thank you, Watch 3 Apparel, because Rudy over at Watch 3 is the one who did it and hooked us up with those stickers, and it's awesome. And this is for you guys. However, it is only for those who purchase the shirt. So if you want the design, you want that sticker, unfortunately, you have to purchase the shirt. The shirt is
not unfortunately. Buy the shirt, we'll give you the sticker. It's a good deal.
You get the sticker free. You also get another you get a free little goodie in there. I also throw in maybe a War Stories patch, maybe another FAFO, not a patch, but I'm sorry, a War Story sticker, maybe another sticker.
We're like that candy that the company that always ships you stuff with like a little piece of candy in there.
Right. We think those are nice gifts to get when, especially sometimes it takes a little bit to get it out. And if you're listening, you're like, well, I haven't got my tracking. Sometimes, I get the tracking. I always get the tracking. However, sometimes my wife loses it. And so that's always a good thing. But just know that I try to get your package out as soon as possible and, try to get out there as quick as possible. But so as always, thank you guys today for listening. I'm trying to get into my notes. And it's
you guys can follow us on all of our socials. Facebook, Instagram. Seriously, go and rate and review. One of the things that helps podcasts get charted, is when they pop up in other people's feeds as suggested for you, or highly rated on this, Google, or highly rated on Apple or whatever. So if everybody can go and leave us a 5-star review, you can type whatever you want, type a middle finger. We don't care, but leave us a 5-star review. It really does help grow the podcast. And the more we still get people emailing us, I just started listening to you guys. Now, how do I hear your back issues? If you want to hear our back catalog, you got to go to Podbean, or you can go to our website, www.warstoriesofficial.com. And all of our old episodes are there, because Google, Spotify, Apple, they only keep a certain number of them.
Like 150.
It depends on the platform, but past that, you can't get into our back catalog unless you go onto our hosting site or our actual website, store, merch, all that. So visit us there.
And if you want to come on the show, it's booking.warstories@gmail.com.
Yeah, because we are still going to have guests. We're doing these debriefs, but we are still going to have guests. Right.
So we wanted to start doing these debriefs because we want this to start morphing into, overall stories of things that we see, other stories that people write in that they don't necessarily want to come on the show. So we want to be able to talk about those as well as have our guests on. So if you want to come on the show, booking.warstories@gmail.com. We're looking for law enforcement, firefighters, veterans, first responders.
The more you support us, the more we can bring you content. We'd love to, especially Chuck, we'd love to do this full time.
Yeah, it'd be great. And if you're looking, I'm gonna plug myself real quick. Here we go. If you're looking to follow one of our other accounts, one of my accounts, not our other accounts, but if you want to follow another account that I have, go to Slabside Gecko on Instagram.
Chuck's a gecko breeder. If you want to run a really fucking expensive gecko, go see Chuck.
It's cool.
Need a crested gecko, go see Chuck.
Yeah, Slabside Gecko. Slabside Gecko on Instagram. You'll see a little car with a gecko on top. It's my old Lincoln. Yeah. Follow me there and
buy a gecko.
It's great. But anyways, buy a gecko. No, the follows help. No. But anyways, thank you guys for tuning in today. Again, if you want to come on the show, booking.warstories@gmail.com. If you have any questions, you can also go to mailbag. And if you forget any of these emails, link in a bio on Facebook and Instagram. Share a post, share a stuff. Try to get more active again on Instagram because it helps with the algorithm. But again, if you want to come on the show, booking.warstories@gmail.com. If you forget, link in the bio on Instagram and Facebook. And if you want to just write in and say what's up to Tom,
send us an email.
Go to mailbag, War Stories mailbag.
The mailbag.warstories@gmail.com.
Mailbag.warstories@gmail.com.
And until our next episode, come home with your shield or armor.